is Wendy Clement. I'm at the College of New Jersey, which is a public, primarily residential college. We've got about 6,800 students. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is a massive outreach effort that we did on our campus called Tasting the Tree of Life. And one of the reasons I was so excited about this was first the high student involvement. If you take a look at my co-authors, Katie Elliott and Jeffrey Osborne, another professor and our dean were involved, but everybody in blue was a student, and everybody in yellow was from dining services. So there's a lot of student input in this particular project. And I was particularly excited about it, not only because we got to talk about biodiversity, but it was also a platform to really get out the ideas of tree thinking. And so we have a history on our campus of working with dining services and doing these sort of collaborative meals organized around a particular theme. So Tree of Life came up as suggested by our dean, and we looked at this as an opportunity to really reach a broad audience. And in doing so, we wanted to engage our campus on a place that they go to regularly. That is, we wanted to meet them where they were rather than asking them to come to us. And so to do that, we used the dining hall. And so we basically formed a huge lunch. We designed the event using backwards design. We reached out to collaborators across campus, so not just dining services, but we worked with social scientists, we worked with our communications department, and as you'll see in the coming slides. And we also used it as an opportunity to really train students in scientific outreach and to think about what does it mean to participate and also design these kinds of events. So we had a scientific planning committee, and so we talked about what are our goals going to be. We wanted to make sure to define these early and to be able to communicate them. And so they were to taste biodiversity and connect to your favorite cuisine, to lineages in life, to navigate the tree of life and the relationships among its branches through your meal, to learn about evolutionary processes that affect your diet, observe how humans have impacted the biodiversity of food, and finally to explore tree of life research ongoing at our college. We wanted these, we sort of borrowed from the museum world, we wanted these to be experiential goals, goals that you would be actively participating in during the event. And so with 9 different meal stations in our dining hall, we had the ability to make 9 meals. That was a lot, so we organized them around 3 different themes. And we tried to have messaging with a hook, things that would pull people in. And so we had one theme called Discovering the Biodiversity on Your Plate. And we had, things like dishing out biodiversity, feeding your diverse microbiome, ancient farm to today's table. So these short kind of titles to help pull people in. This was also an interactive feature of our website. So if you go to Tasting Tree of Life, you can click on each of these dining plates and get more information about the meal. Okay, the entire event was also backward designed. And so we did this with assessment in mind from the very start. So to take a walk through one of our particular goals, it was to taste biodiversity. And so we connected this to our assessment, and so sort of a pre-post. And we asked students and faculty and staff to evaluate this using a Likert scale. And so the type of things would be, I had already thought about my food in terms of biodiversity before today's event, or I will now consider biodiversity when making food choices. We thought about this with each of our particular meals, and so we had a number of activities that connected to these different meals. So to take dishing out biodiversity, we had a meal associated with that. This was actually at our walk station, and it was a big tasting bar that had everything from roasted crickets to fried frog legs to kombucha, you name it, it was there. Vegemite spread on a baguette. And we also, with every single meal, had a poster that was associated with it that pulled out some of the messaging. So this is the one that went with dishing out biodiversity. And we also had student field guides. So we had students trained on each of the meals that were interacting with the participants during the lunch event. We also had a keynote lecture that morning that connected with one of the big meals, particularly around underutilized crops. So this is Nairi Zerica posing with some jackfruit. And we also had our website. So for those that wanted a deeper dive into the meal, our students actually wrote longer essays about each of these meals that folks could read about if they wanted to. Our collaboration with dining services was amazing. So working with Chef Lauren Franchetti, she designed all of the meals, but to communicate with her, I actually gave her a phylogenetically informed ingredient list, which our chef was like, a what? And so in giving this to her, I basically could say, look, here's all of these different groups of organisms that are closely related. Can you pick from as many of these as possible to make a really diverse meal? And man, did she meet the challenge. She was really excited about it, came up with some cool things. Equally important was our work with the dining services staff, because they completely transformed the dining hall. We do not have these kind of fancy tablecloths every day in our dining hall, nor do we have all of this signage around. So when students walked in, they knew something was different that day, and it made them pay attention to what was going on. A big point for me was thinking about tree thinking and how to communicate this to our audience, and so we came up with an ingredient tree that had 149 ingredients that we used that day, and we were really cognizant to hit all of our major groups of the tree of life, including archaea, which came in the form of pink Himalayan salts. But we also had to help people think about tree thinking. And so we had pamphlets that they got when they walked in, as well as placards that were on each of the table that helped them understand what a tree is and what we can see when we're looking at the diversity on our plate. And so associated with each of the meals, we took this tree and we lit up all of the branches that were part of the meal that they might have been eating to help them try to see how diverse what was on their plate. We also had a gallery, so we took sort of an art gallery approach to helping folks see the change in the understanding and viewing of trees over time. And we also put together a faculty tree of all the different organisms folks work on in the biology department. And it also allowed us to talk about some other issues that were near and dear to us. So I'm a botanist, so talking about plant blindness and helping people understand the role of plant pollination, or the diversity of different groups that they may see, like the brassicas that are within a single species, to underutilized crops like breadfruit and jackfruit, and this connected to our keynote speaker. Student collaboration was huge. Students were part of the entire event from the get-go. They helped us with the messaging, they helped us design the meals, and they were also field guides. So we had the ability to work with them beforehand and helping to think, how do you communicate with an audience for whom these ideas are incredibly new. Students were also really clever and great in thinking about advertising this event, so everything from a Snapchat geofilter to these really fun stickers that they designed. I still see them around campus all the time. I've got these like all over my office in particular. And then of course we assessed this as well. So coming back to the assessment I talked about in the backward design piece, we used a Likert scale and asked them about their ideas coming in versus their ideas leaving, and we saw a lot of improvement. So connecting biodiversity to the food they eat, we saw a positive change in that people will be thinking more about the biodiversity of the food they eat from day to day. We also asked questions about relatedness. Do people think about the food on their plate being related to each other in terms of how scientists might think about that? Again, we saw an improvement from before to after. And then interestingly, the third one we asked was about human effect on biodiversity, and we had an impact there, but interestingly, people had come in really thinking about the impact that humans have on food, and we thought maybe this is actually a way, with folks coming in with that information, we were able to build on that even more. So we also worked with our communications department on campus to make sure that this was getting out there. And so our lunch, we had 3,200 people come to our lunch that day. Remember, our population on campus is 6,800. And so I think this is really important about meeting folks where they are rather than asking them to come to you. We had only about 150 at a keynote lecture, right? So we said, please come to a keynote lecture versus come eat at your dining hall. We also were able to get the news to come. And so we had ABC and Fox News come and run stories on this. And so if you add up the viewership for that, you have about 344,000 people who potentially saw that segment that night. And then we also got a lot of print articles, everything from our biology department newsletter to the TCNJ newspaper to our alumni magazine, as well as a number of food magazines that add up, and as well as the Trenton and New Jersey, Trenton Times and NewJersey.com. So reaching potentially another near 600,000 people. And if you put that together, we potentially with this event reached over 900,000 people. And that came with collaborating with our communications department, because I don't know how to get the news to come to us, but they do. And they were really excited about this particular event. So if you're thinking about planning an outreach event, I think that there's a lot that you can do with tasting the tree of life. There's a lot that you can do with food. And I really challenge people to continue to get not only biodiversity out there, but tree thinking out there as a way to help people think about evolution. In putting these events together, we definitely prioritized where our venue is going to be. We wanted to meet people where they were rather than asking them to come to us. We found it to be incredibly important to define our goals, to make sure that they were experiential and that people knew what it was that they were going to take away from the event. As they walked in, that pamphlet that we handed them, that not only had information about tree thinking, it also had our goals. We wanted to engage students from start to finish. This was an opportunity to really think about how at an early level or an early point in their undergraduate education to get students thinking about scientific outreach. We collaborated with everybody we could, from dining services to communications. We had worked with the social scientists to come up with our assessment questions and the best way to analyze those. And then that goes hand in hand with assessing. So of course, assessing is incredibly important for thinking about the impact of your particular outreach event. So in that, I have an incredible number of people to thank. So everybody that you see here underlined is a student, but these are all the different groups that we worked with. I didn't mention too much about our artist collaboration, but we actually had an artist who designed our logo, if you will, for the entire event, which we used on everything. So everybody from dining services to web design to photography, videography, our Tree of Life gallery. Nicole's probably here. Yep, she's one of our undergraduates who's here presenting her own work, but was also part of this effort. So my thanks to all of these people, and thank you. Some questions, yeah.
Good question. So do you have any plan to investigate to taste the tree of life in Asia? This seems to be in the US, right?
Yes, this was definitely focused in the US. We were able to, especially with our underutilized crop stations, get students to think about things that they may not see normally in their grocery store. So it was a way for us to at least start to introduce the fact that there are going to be other ingredients that are going to be much more popular in other cultures than they are here. But Asia would be a really fun place to do this.
Maybe it will be different, in different continents.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to compare just the average diversity of a meal across different cultures, for sure. That would be a really cool way to kind of take it to the next level. Yeah, very cool. Yes.
Wendy, this is amazing.
Thank you.
So cool. You're blowing my mind. But I was wondering about that chef. It seems so critical that
Yes.
you have the kind of chef you have on campus.
Yes.
And so can you speak to what your campus food culture is like and whether the college has put a lot of effort into having, it looked like the dining hall was nice and there was like a salad place that was probably permanent.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we have all these different kind of stations, and I think actually it may not be so much her herself, but also really thinking about how we collaborate with people outside of the sciences. So we had so many meetings, and we included them from the get-go. So when we first kicked this off, we had a meeting with everybody, and I sort of gave a slideshow about what trees are and what tree thinking is, to try to pull everybody in and make sure everybody felt part of the process through the entire journey, if you will. And I think that having that kind of an inclusive vision from the very start excited everybody who was there, and so she was really